1941, a state of war.
What General Vietcong had called the Battle of France was over. The Battle of Britain is about to begin.
We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields and in the streets, we shall fight in the hills.
From day to day, the men of the 25th, the Tropic Lightning Division, must live up to their honored motto and be ready to strike.
So I wanted to do something a little bit different for Memorial Day. I've got a Chinese SKS in 7.62 by 39, and this one was brought back from Vietnam in 1966. This rifle is all matching, and it's got that early blade bayonet that you usually don't see on bringbacks. Most of the time it's the later spike bayonets. It's got that patina on there you're used to seeing with the Vietnam or Korean War bringback. And this rifle actually has a pretty unique story that goes along with it. So it was brought back by a John Stajduhar, who was a part of the 35th Infantry Regiment, which is also called the Cacti Regiment, and they were part of the 25th Light Infantry Division, also known as the Tropic Lightning. If you guys have heard of Tropic Thunder, that's where they were making fun of the Tropic Lightning with the name and calling it Tropic Thunder. And he was stationed in Pleiku, and they were out on patrol. And they started getting fired on what he calls a sniper, by a sniper up in a tree, a Vietcong sniper. And he takes aim, fires, goes right through the buttstock of the rifle, the back of the rifle, into this guy's neck. He dies in the tree. Rifle falls from the tree. He picks it up and brings it home. And this rifle has the most bringback paperwork I have ever seen with any single firearm before. I mean, there's duplicates and triplicates of everything in here except for this one pink form. And it actually looks like he went up in rank. I think one of these forms shows him once he got back to the States with it anyways. But it's just amazing that he has all this paperwork with it. Honestly, when I got this thing, I thought it was too good to be true, because I saw in that pink form especially it said captured in combat. I'm like, that almost sounds like something a forger or a faker would put on paperwork to entice people into buying it. But then I saw the paperwork and I was like, okay, all this is just, there's just too much here, and all of it looks too right for this to have been faked, which unfortunately does happen. There's a lot of blank paperwork out there that people buy. They'll attach to a gun, so you have to be really careful and really vet whatever purchases you make when it comes to bringbacks from any war, because unfortunately it's, paperwork increases value. So I'm not sure, being 1966, if it was an M16 or it was an M14. I mean, that looks like it could be a 7.62 NATO, or I guess it could be from an M16, but I don't know. I kind of think it was an M14. But I guess it may have tumbled, which would make more sense with the M16. What do you guys think? Anyways, I know someone's going to ask me. This is not for sale. Later on, I will probably end up donating this to a museum, because I feel like this is something cool that other people will want to see. For now, I'm going to continue enjoying it, though, and I've got some cool footage of the 25th Infantry Division for you guys to watch.
For the division in the Hawaiian Islands area during the early 60s were concentrated on jungle fighting and were reminiscent of the Tropic Lightning's bitter battles on Guadalcanal in 1942 and the historic Philippines campaign of World War II. By 1965, the division was slated for service in Vietnam. Training was intensified for these veterans of the Korean conflict. The 6,000-mile voyage ended on January 15th at the port of Vung Tau in South Vietnam. As the men of the 2nd Brigade came ashore, they were greeted by General Westmoreland, the U.S. military commander in Vietnam. It was the beginning of a new year and a new chapter in the annals of the Tropic Lightning Division's colorful history. During the next few days, the 2nd Brigade moved upcountry to the Cu Chi district, some 20 miles northwest of Saigon. Day and night, more than 600 vehicles rolled through the little village of Cu Chi as the convoys headed for the division's campsite on the outskirts. Meanwhile, the division's 3rd Brigade had begun arriving from Hawaii by airlift. Their destination was Pleiku in the central highlands of Vietnam. This was to be the 25th Infantry Division's forward base, while Cu Chi would be Tropic Lightning headquarters. For the men of the 25th, the first major assault upon the enemy came with Operation Garfield. From Pleiku, units of the 3rd Brigade were flown southward to Darlac Province and the Vietcong-infested area around Ban Mi Tu. It was the beginning of a month-long sweep of the province. The VC were difficult to pin down, and the searchers were plagued by hidden snipers. As the Tropic Lightning troopers pressed forward, the Vietcong withdrew deeper into the jungle. Whole villages recently occupied by the enemy were found to be deserted. Sometimes the dwellings were booby-trapped. All documents left behind by the enemy were carefully studied for military intelligence. Any place where the Vietcong may have hidden weapons or valuable papers was thoroughly searched. Even the contents of these bags were examined. Time and again during Operation Garfield, the men of the 25th had to re-evaluate their search patterns and objectives. Actual contact with the enemy was confined to small unit actions. However limited, these sudden shootouts in the jungle took their toll of battle casualties. Some of the enemy were taken alive, but many more were killed. Intelligence gathered from the prisoners guided the troopers from Hawaii as their search continued. Many caches of Vietcong rice were located thanks to information given by the prisoners. The food was later distributed to needy Vietnamese people. Great quantities of enemy medical supplies and surgical equipment were also captured, and the operation concluded as the VC fled. The men of the 3rd Brigade took these enemy supplies with them and returned to Pleiku. Meanwhile, units of the 2nd Brigade were conducting Operation Kahuku in the area around Cu Chi. Supported by armor, these elements of the 25th ran into heavy resistance as they approached the Micheline rubber plantation. Enemy mortar fire rained down upon the advancing armored personnel carriers. Some of the machines were rendered inoperable as a result of the enemy fire, but this did not deter the Tropic Lightning troopers from continuing their advance. As they penetrated deeper into the plantation, the men of the 25th found the enemy dug in with well-constructed bunkers. Dislodging the Vietcong is never easy. Several hours of combat caused the troopers of the 2nd Brigade Task Force to take casualties. But, in the end, the VC were overcome by superior firepower. And the underground fortifications were overrun by the Americans. Many of the Vietcong were slain. The remainder fled from the battlefield. This day, the reign of terror for the local people had come to an end. The enemy would not return. Throughout June and July, the Pleiku, Play Me area was the scene of a major effort by the 25th Division and some elements of the 1st Cavalry Division Airmobile to clear the Vietcong from the district. Under the code name Paul Revere, the full-scale operation took place some 40 kilometers from the Cambodian border. In this determined drive, heavy armored elements of the 3rd Brigade were called up and joined in the massive sweep. Everything in the book was to be thrown at the VC on this one. The activity grew at a feverish pace, and the task force began to move. In the forward areas overlooking the Ya Drang Valley, artillery and heavy mortars were flown in. Fire bases were set up, and suspected enemy positions were zeroed in. Now airborne, the assault troops of the brigade were headed into action. Preparatory fire support began. Despite the heavy shelling, the dispersing Vietcong and North Vietnamese Army units managed to shoot down one of the American helicopters. However, the U.S. troops continued to join the battle. Doggedly, they pursued the fleeing enemy into the deepest jungle. All over the northwestern part of Pleiku province, the Tropic Lightning sweep pressed the enemy ever backward as Operation Paul Revere concluded. Because of valuable lessons learned about the enemy's tactics during actual combat, the division established a special training course to teach Tropic Lightning troopers how to ambush enemy troops played by U.S. soldiers during night operations. The deadly Claymore mine is one of the ambush tools which are used by these night fighters. Though the 25th Infantry Division is well trained on the subject of guerrilla warfare, Major General Fred C. Wayland, who was then the commanding general, felt the men would benefit from special instruction on ways to trap the enemy. Additional measures to deal with the hidden foe were taken as the infantrymen from Hawaii began working with scout dogs. Continuous obedience training conditions the animals and assures their instant response to the handler's commands. In the field, the big 125-pound animals are trained to sniff out hidden enemy personnel in the thick undergrowth. When VC are located, the scout dogs indicate their find without making a sound. The enemy never knows his presence has been discovered until the dog and troopers are upon him. While continuing their combat operations, the 25th Infantry Division, along with all other U.S. Army units in Vietnam, began putting more emphasis upon psychological warfare and pacification programs. Residents of a suspected Vietcong village are called out for a well-planned pacification festival. Meanwhile, the hamlet has been surrounded by both U.S. and South Vietnamese troops. In a thorough screening process, Vietnamese officials carry out indoctrination of the villagers, assisted by soldiers of the 25th Division, pointing out the fallacies of the Vietcong ideology and offering a better life in exchange for loyalty to the Saigon government. First stage of the screening is the 25th Division interrogation section. Here, villagers are identified and military intelligence gathered.
Ask her what her husband does.
Chồng chị làm tài xế không? Làm phụ, làm lơ đó hả?
Dạ.
How old is he?
Anh bao nhiêu tuổi rồi chị?
Ở trong khi xanh mới 17. Tôi xịt 18.
How old?
17.
How old is she?
No, Huyền. Chị bao nhiêu?
Tôi sinh ngày 1944.
The Vietnamese Information Service is next to process the people of the village. At this section, they learn of the various assistance programs which the Saigon government is making available to the needy of the nation. The section set up by the psychological warfare teams assists the Vietnamese in distributing literature aimed at politically repatriating the individual with communist leanings. One of the most important aspects of the pacification process is the free medical service given to the villagers. What these physicians and medical aid men do here is long remembered. In the final stage of the screening process, the Helping Hand section determines the most immediate needs of each family and distributes a wide variety of items considered basic for day-to-day living. Pacification festivals like this one are conducted as a joint effort of both the American Military Command and the government of the Republic of Vietnam. Everywhere, the results are encouraging. As the months roll by, the Tropic Lightning Division psyops teams have stepped up their distribution of Chiu Hoi leaflets, pamphlets calling upon the members of the National Liberation Front, the Vietcong, to drop their communist-inspired activities and realign themselves with the Saigon government. By every means available, the leaflets are disseminated throughout the division's area of responsibility, a major campaign to win over the hearts and minds of the enemy within. Promising safe conduct and a life of freedom for those who respond and lay down their arms, the Chiu Hoi leaflets are read by thousands. And the campaign works. Previous hardcore Vietcong are defecting to the Americans by the hundreds. In their eagerness to start the new life, the defectors offer wholehearted cooperation. They lead our troops to the hiding places of their former VC guerrilla comrades. Each location is systematically searched, then destroyed. Midsummer 1967, 17 months after the division's arrival at Cu Chi, medical teams from the Tropic Lightning Division had treated more than 189,000 Vietnamese citizens. The overall Civic Action program being carried out by the 25th Division takes many forms. Here at the village of Do Tieng, some 50 miles northeast of Saigon, a number of self-help projects have been launched under supervision of the 3rd Brigade S5 section. Captain Vinton Laux is the officer in charge.
Do Tieng is in a position here next to the Saigon River. It comprises 5 hamlets. We have here a population of about 10,000 people, which is approximately 2/3 of the total population here in the Tritom district. Because of our position next to the village, we feel that we can get in here and do civic action work with the people and thereby reach most of the people in the district. What we try to do mainly is create projects for these people in coordination with the district and village officials that are going to be, number one, long-lasting, and number two, projects in which the people are going to derive a lasting benefit. We we try to get these people, and we have been very successful in getting them to do projects on their own, in which we provide materials, technical assistance, and then they do the projects. I truly feel that the willing cooperation and the enthusiasm shown by the people here in Diaocheng is a good indication that these people feel secure from BC in the area here, that they want to see their village progress, we have come a long way in the time that the brigade has been here and has assisted these people. And I think that in time to come, we're going to find these people contributing more and also feeling more secure in their respective areas here.
In the final analysis, the United States Army 25th Infantry Division is a combat outfit. In this shooting war, their first job is to hunt down the enemy forces and to eliminate them as efficiently as possible. This is not easily done in the guerrilla warfare of Vietnam's jungles, swamps, and rice paddies. A typical example is Operation Barking Sands, named after a famous beach in the Hawaiian Islands. Elements of the 1st Brigade are being sent out to clear an area in the battle zone, suspected of harboring the Vietcong 2nd Do Mien Battalion, a hardcore guerrilla unit supported by the Hanoi government. The trouble spot is a place with the improbable name of Ap Na Biek, about 10 miles east of the division's Cu Chi base. The plan called for the assault force to go in 2 waves, landing about 100 yards apart. At the landing zone, the first wave received fire from the Viet Cong and was immediately pinned down. The second wave came in, and it too was taken under fire. Trying to link up with the first wave, the men of Alpha Company received fire from the wood line to the back, front, and one side. They kept pushing ahead, while the forward observer called in the helicopter gunship for suppressive fire. It took the men of Alpha Company nearly 2 hours to link up with the men of the first wave, only 100 yards away. Finally, the Air Force Sabre jets were called in. Operation Barking Sands. A small portion of the war against the aggressors was completed. The little hamlet of Ap Na Biek was taken. From day to day, this is the way it is in Vietnam. As the conflict continues, the 25th Infantry Division of the United States Army fulfills its daily missions of compassion and nation building on the one hand, and the stern duty of ground combat on the other. Whatever the demand, the Tropic Lightning Division stands, ready to strike.